Imagine, just for a second, a world with absolutely no leaders. No presidents, no CEOs, no military commanders, not even parents guiding their kids. It'd be chaos, right? If everyone just acted completely alone, human civilization as we know it literally wouldn't exist. From our earliest ancestors all the way to massive modern global organizations, our survival has completely depended on cooperation. And, well, cooperation requires coordination. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the architecture of influence to understand exactly how humans become leaders.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this question is the absolute central mystery we need to solve today. For centuries, there's been this really pervasive myth that leadership is just some innate genetic gift. Like you're either born with it or you're not. But as we'll see from the source data, that is simply not true. We're going to challenge that myth head-on and look at the hard evidence showing that leadership is actually a highly practiced skill. It's a mix of experience, biology, and psychology.
So, here's our roadmap to solve the whole born versus made debate. We'll start with the origins of human leadership, move into the neuroscience of influence, look at history's greatest leadership lessons, give you a solid blueprint for building a great leader, and then finish up with the future of leadership.
Starting off with Chapter 1, Origins of Human Leadership, from Survival to Society. Let's travel back hundreds of thousands of years to see how our basic need for survival quite literally built society.
Picture this. 300,000 years ago, there were no crowns, no fancy titles, and definitely no HR departments. Early hunter-gatherer tribes survived through super flexible leadership. Basically, whoever had the most relevant knowledge at the time took charge. It could be a skilled hunter during a hunt or a healer when illness struck. Fast forward to about 12,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution triggers a massive population explosion. Suddenly, we needed permanent institutions, which gave rise to kings just to manage all those complex resources. And today? Well, our global challenges demand a highly complex, collaborative form of influence that spans across continents.
Now, here is a really critical distinction. History has proven time and time again that leaders who rely strictly on raw authority or fear, well, they inevitably face rebellion. True leadership has always been about influence. And influence? That comes from the willingness of others to follow you. You could have the fanciest title in the entire world, but if you don't inspire trust, you really don't have influence.
Moving to Chapter 2, the neuroscience of influence, inside the leader's brain. Let's shift gears from ancient history to modern biology to see exactly what happens inside a leader's head when the pressure is on.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is how modern brain imaging shows leadership emerging from a network of different brain regions. You have the amygdala, our animalistic fear brain. It's an alarm system that triggers impulsive reactions to threats. That could be a saber-toothed tiger or just a passive-aggressive work email. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, the leadership brain, which handles planning and emotional regulation. And here's the secret. Great leaders aren't fearless. Their amygdala rings just as loudly as yours or mine. They just use their prefrontal cortex to hit pause, evaluate, and make thoughtful choices instead of just lashing out. And this ability to regulate emotions leads us directly to a pretty striking reality. A whopping 75% of modern leadership success is driven by emotional intelligence. Compare that to just 25% for raw cognitive IQ. This is largely driven by mirror neurons in our brains, which allow us to unconsciously understand and actually mirror the emotions of people around us. So empathy isn't just fluffy corporate jargon, it's a biological imperative. If you demonstrate genuine care, our brains literally reward us with trust.
Which brings us to the absolute ultimate proof that leaders are made, not born: neuroplasticity. Because the human brain can develop brand new neural pathways throughout our entire lives.
Your leadership ability is never fixed at birth. Every single time you practice emotional awareness or regulate your stress or make a tough call, you are physically rewiring your brain to become a better leader.
Chapter 3, History's Greatest Leadership Lessons, The Power of Example. History is essentially just one long story of leadership, showing us how different individuals applied these exact psychological principles to some truly immense challenges.
When we look back, it becomes super clear that there is no single leadership personality. I mean, think about it. You have Mahatma Gandhi, who held almost zero formal political power, but led millions through unshakable moral conviction. Marie Curie proved that sharing scientific knowledge and mentoring others is an incredibly profound form of leadership. Steve Jobs showed us the sheer power of a massive vision when it's balanced with a strong team. And Malala Yousafzai proved beyond a doubt that influence comes entirely from action and conviction, regardless of your age or your official title.
When you synthesize all these historical lives, you arrive at this incredibly profound takeaway from the source material. The true measure of leadership is not how many followers someone has. It is how many future leaders they create. The greatest historical figures didn't just hoard power or feed their own egos. They understood that their true legacy was the stronger, wiser, and more confident people they left behind. Moving into Chapter 4, Building a Great Leader, the Habits of Influence. So how do we actively take these historical and scientific lessons and apply them to our own daily lives?
Well, here is your practical blueprint. You absolutely do not need some magical, charismatic personality to lead. You just need to cultivate a few core habits over time. Uncompromising integrity means keeping your promises, especially when it's hard. Intellectual humility is just admitting you don't know everything, right? And active listening means actually hearing your team, not just politely waiting for your turn to speak. Add in consistent discipline, a willingness to adapt, and actually taking accountability for failure instead of pointing fingers. None of these are genetic traits. They are deliberate, daily choices you make. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how you build those habits. It's called the growth mindset loop. This is the psychological engine that transforms ordinary people into exceptional leaders. First, you build self-awareness of your strengths and your limits. Second, you take action, make decisions even when things are uncertain. Third, and this is absolutely vital, when you inevitably fail, you have to accept it as data and feedback, not a personal defeat. And finally, reflect, adapt, and improve for next time. You just keep running this loop. Now, notice the number 0 here. That is the exact number of perfect leaders who exist in the world today. Literally 0, none. Every single great leader struggles, feels fear, faces criticism, and heavily relies on a team to cover their blind spots. If you're sitting around waiting to be perfect before you finally step up to lead, well, you're going to be waiting forever.
Finally, Chapter 5, The Future of Leadership, Leading in the Digital Age. Let's pivot to the modern world, where the internet, remote work, and rapid global changes are totally redefining what it means to be an effective leader today.
In our digital age, we are increasingly working right alongside machines. Artificial intelligence is, frankly, incredible at processing massive amounts of data and calculating optimal outputs. But AI cannot replace what actually makes leadership work. Human leaders provide moral judgment. They demonstrate real empathy when a team member is struggling. They inspire a shared purpose. So as AI automates more and more mechanical tasks, these deeply human soft skills actually become our absolute most valuable assets. It really all comes down to this powerful thesis. Machines can calculate, but humans create meaning. You just cannot program trust, honesty, or compassion into an algorithm. In an increasingly complex and automated world, the ability to unite people around a meaningful, ethical vision is exactly what's going to set great organizations apart from the rest.
So we've seen that leadership definitely isn't some genetic lottery. It's a trainable skill, born from our evolution, wired right into our neuroplastic brains, and proven over and over throughout history. It really begins the exact moment you decide to take responsibility. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Leadership is a choice. You don't need a title to start. What kind of leader will you choose to become today?